Welcome to Pages and Partners, a Muncie Public Library podcast. Discover the library through our history, buildings, staff, programs, and partnerships. Join us as we explore what makes Muncie Public Library an important part of our community.
Thank you for joining us for Pages and Partners, a podcast from Muncie Public Library. I'm Gabby Sandifer, Great Achievers Supervisor, and today we're back with part 2 of our conversation on the thriving book club scene here at MPL. In part 1, we spoke with Taylor Slater, Alexis Robertson, and Dottie Krebs about several of the book clubs offered across our branches. If you haven't listened to that episode yet, be sure to check it out. For part 2, I'm excited to welcome 3 new guests, each leading unique book clubs and bringing fresh perspectives to our discussion. Today, joining me are Donna Catron, Library Manager of the Kennedy Library, Joe Nelson, Information Specialist 2 at the Kennedy Library, and Laura Geesy, Technology and Training Manager at the Marrying Hunt Library. So thank you all for joining us so much. We're really excited to continue our discussion about book clubs. So I'm going to ask a question, and I'll just let us each all go around and answer them, starting with Laura and ending with Donna. So first of all, tell us about your book club, the name, and what types of books your group reads, and how does your book club choose which books to read?
So I am the leader of Books on Tap. We read about everything. We've done young adult to nonfiction. It's all over the board. So what I have my group do is I have a sheet on our Facebook page where they can suggest titles that they want to read for the next year. And then about this time of year, midsummer, I compile the list and then send it out for them to vote on to come up with the list. So they definitely like being able to first suggest books for the list, but then also being able to vote on the books that we get to use.
Wonderful.
Okay. I serve as a co-leader of our off-the-shelf book club that we do with a partnership with Schaefer Leadership Academy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Primarily, we tend to read books regarding topics for inspirational leadership, so it is more of a nonfiction-based book club. And Schaefer Leadership Academy, they come with the book titles that they want to discuss, as well as getting us in touch with the facilitators or the book discussion leaders that they brought. They brought in various different people from Schaefer Leadership's network of individuals. We've had a couple which the authors of the books themselves have led the discussion,
That's
such
awesome.
as our most recent one. A really positive experience on that one. And it's a little bit different from other book clubs. It's kind of more set up from one session to the next, but we've always had good experiences so far, so we're looking to continue on.
Awesome. And then Miss Donna?
Yeah, Reading Circle reads kind of an eclectic mix of fiction, both contemporary and historical, and we have some nonfiction thrown in too, just for variety. Most of our books tend to be newer, but once in a while we'll read classics. Our selection process is very similar to Laura's. I compile a list based on suggestions, and then we vote on them.
Great. And so what is the vibe of your guys' meetings? Are they more relaxed and chatty, or are they more focused and structured?
I would say it's a little bit of both. We do meet out at Twin Archer, so it is bar. So there are some people that are drinking, and we usually are eating food and things like that. But I usually come prepared with questions that I'm going to ask of the thing, but sometimes we start off with how'd you like the book, and then that leads up to, and I never ask any of my questions I had. So it's a little bit of both. They really like having that conversation and being a little chatty and not having you can only answer this question at this time kind of structure type thing. So
yeah, well, I feel like that when you open the floor for more dialogue, you get a lot more out of it than if you were to be like, nope, we're only answering this right now. So, and also just a side note to everyone, Twin Archer has some of the best food in Muncie. I love that restaurant. So check it out if you haven't. Delicious food. They have some of the best mac and cheese I've ever had. So, and then Joe, what about your group?
Our group is also kind of a little bit of both. We tend to have it's one of the kind of book clubs that you don't necessarily have to read the book before you can attend and participate. So it's really almost like the session itself is trying to promote the book for people to read it after the fact.
Yeah.
So we tend to have discussions regarding various different portions of the book, trying to say that if this would interest you, then please give this a try. And every so often we will have breakout sessions to where we will split the group in two. Usually the facilitator will give us, like, maybe have us reflect on personal anecdotes as it pertains to the topic of the book, and has us discuss matters with them, and then brings everyone together, and then willing volunteers would report their own anecdotes too and how it applies. So it provides a good personal point to the book, as well as more of a personalized connection to the book, which I think helps with promoting it then after the fact.
Absolutely. It kind of seems like yours is both a book club and kind of professional development kind of rolled into one. You know, you get to work on yourself, you get to think and reflect on some things about yourself, and then you also get to explore a book. So that's really neat.
Yeah.
I think it's neat that we partner with Schaefer for that too. And then Donna, what's the vibe of Reading Circle?
I would say it's pretty relaxed. I have prepared questions, but I don't always need them. And I've been told by a member that ours is a little different because from the other group she's participated in outside of the library, because we actually talk about the book.
Good. Yeah. I do think that is important. I would be very bummed if I went to the book club very excited and then no one talked about the book. I would be very bummed. So now that we've talked about the vibe, just a quick, for people that are wanting to put this on their calendar, when and where does your book club meet?
Our book club meets the last Tuesday of every month. Oh my goodness, I can't even get that right. At 6:30 at Twin Archers. We meet usually in the back. They have a room back there that's for party things and stuff. But we've also met in the snug. Because it's hard to meet out where the diners are because it's kind of loud out there. So we usually meet back there, and it's a nice little thing.
That's great.
Off the shelf, we meet on a quarterly basis rather than a monthly basis. And when we first started doing Off the Shelf, we would alternate between having a physical meeting at Kennedy Library's meeting room, and then we would have online meetings. But then for a while, we stuck primarily to online meetings just because we felt that it was easier to facilitate with a lot of the different populations, primarily between those who would sign in as part of Schaefer Leadership Academy's general target demographic for their programming versus our own target demographic for programming. But recently we have been making talks for returning to more of the physical locations, which we are currently, fingers crossed, planning for our next September 2025
That's so
session.
exciting.
So that'll be wonderful to meet for that.
Yeah, that's great. There's always a push and pull because online is a lot more accessible to folks. It really is. But, nothing can really beat that person-to-person conversation. So hopefully you guys are able to all meet up. That's really exciting. And then, Donna, when and where does your book club meet?
Reading Circle meets the second Monday of each month at Kennedy Library meeting room. And the only exception to that will be our October meeting will meet the first Monday because we're going to be closed. The library is going to be closed the second Monday.
Great. And then, kind of shifting back to the books, what are some of the books your club has read recently that you'd like to share about?
So this past week, we actually just finished A Fever in the Heartland. And that was a very interesting book because it's about the Ku Klux Klan in 1920s. And it's takeover, basically, of the United States and Indiana in particular.
Yeah.
So that was a really interesting book. And it was, there was a lot to talk about with that book.
Very
and
heavy.
It wasn't something that most of the people that were there knew about or heard about. So, because, you think Ku Klux Klan, you think way back in the 1800s. This was actually 1920 on its coming back from the thing. We also read Starter Villain at the beginning of the year. We usually try to do a sci-fi book because it's sci-fi month.
Yeah.
So we read Starter Villain, and it has talking cats and
don't have to
other
tell me
creatures. And so that one was really fun. We also read The Indifferent Star. So we followed Indifferent Stars with the Fever in the Heartland, and Indifferent Stars was the Donner Party.
Oh, wow.
So we had 2 heavy books back to back. Don't ask me why I did that, because I don't know. Usually we try not to do something like that.
Sometimes it's just how the cookie crumbles. There'll be times where I'll be like in a reading phase where like I'm reading a lot of true crime and I'm like, why am I so anxious? Oh, yeah, I should probably read like a happy book. That would probably be helpful.
Yes.
Great. And then Joe, what has been some of your favorite books the club's read recently?
I would say that off the shelf, we tend to go a lot of different avenues for trying to pick our books. There are some books that are old, tried and true favorites when it comes with inspirational leadership. We've read a lot of Simon Sinek's works.
Yes, I am familiar with him.
We read The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, which I really appreciated that particular book. We read Flow by Mihaly. I cannot pronounce his last name, and it's over probably 20 letters, so please don't put me on the spot to pronounce that name, but I know that it's a well-regarded work in that particular. And our particular last book we met was Unbunk Yourself by Emily Marash, who was
I feel like I've heard about that one.
It's been doing really good in the circles, and we're looking forward to the next books in the series, which will be for Let Them by Mel Robbins, which we've been hearing wonderful things about, and it's been circulating rather well, so I'm looking forward to hearing people's discussions on that. But if you want my favorite thing that we've done with the book club, we did a small brief partnership with Human Library to bring them in to the Kennedy Library, because the matter is about inspirational leadership. What's the best way to gain inspirational leadership? By working in and getting to know people on more of a personal level, to sort of get an empathizing or a sense of where people are coming from on that part. So that was really an eye-opening experience for me, and I think for a lot of the people in attendance, and even for the human books themselves. So
I love Human Library. It came to Ball State when I was a student, and it's a very powerful, I don't even know what to call it, experience. That's kind of what I would call it. It's very powerful for people to connect with each other. So that's really neat that you guys did that. And then what are some of the books your club has read recently, Donna?
Well, we just got done discussing The Frozen River by Ariel Lawhorn. And it was very interesting. It was kind of a mystery, historical fiction set in the late 1700s. So it was very interesting. We also, in April, read a book called The Life After Power by Jared Cohen. And it was nonfiction, talked about lives of 7 ex-presidents and what they did in their after their terms of presidency. So
that sounds
definitely
very
learned a lot
fascinating.
about history that way.
Yeah. Well, and I know especially a lot of First Ladies' work that they have done is typically not as pronounced, and there's a lot of really fabulous things. Like, for example, Pat Nixon, she is the reason that there's hearing aid stuff throughout the White House so that people can hear and stuff. It's really fascinating. A lot of First Ladies will do a lot of really great things for social good and stuff. I might need to get that title from you after this. Well, great. Thank you guys for that. We're going to shift into now. What was one of your favorite books that your club has read and discussed in the past? And this can be years past. This can be recent. What's been kind of one of those that just sticks in your brain?
Water for Wine. That one was really good. It's about the group of gentlemen who started, and they go to Africa to create wells and stuff, and they used it as a fundraiser. It was a fundraiser. That's where the wine comes in. But and they go to Africa and they create these wells, and it was really good. And everybody in the book club loved it. We had a second water one that year that was awful, that was talking a similar type thing, and it was the worst book we read that year. I cannot even remember the title of it, but we started out with that one that year, and it was a really good one.
Yeah. And you had talked about that Human Library that had been neat. Has there been any other ones, or is that one kind of main one that just you really think about?
I especially really think about that one event. I know that the Human Library has also done program partnerships. I believe they held a session at Mary Hunt Library about maybe a year or a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I would just say that it really can be eye-opening just to give everybody like a perspective on such things that they normally would not be akin to themselves, like living in our own skin, like as our own sense of individuals.
Yeah.
It really becomes eye-opening when you meet someone who may be living a lifestyle or anything of that matter differently to your own. So it really makes you reflect as to that we're all going through things in our own way. And I feel that kind of experience lends itself into leadership, especially as you go into more managerial positions, as you develop yourself to where you start interacting with other individuals that may come with these different kind of backgrounds. And then you really begin to get a much better sense of relating to them.
Absolutely. I know as a supervisor myself, one of the main things that I always say, both supervising children and supervising adults, the basis is connection, establishing a connection, and then you build on that. So it's such a powerful tool, connection.
And as far as the different books that we would have available, it's a little bit different for ours because they also tend to be of the same topic. In inspirational leadership, you're trying to think, okay, which one of my favorite books of this one topic do I discuss? So it's really more of a matter of trying to think of which one has good takeaways that you do. And this is where I think some of the facilitators bring in the different breakout sessions that we have. The most recent one that we had with Unfunk Yourself was more discussing how our other managers and others that we would have had an impact on us either for good or for ill. And so it required a lot of self-reflection on those ends on that point. Made me thinking of a lot of different managers before my times in the library sphere. So
Yeah. Well, and myself as a manager too, I know I've grown a lot. Like my manager self 4 years ago is not the same manager now. And so it's just interesting. I think there comes a lot of humility with personal growth. You have to be willing to look at yourself, look at your experiences, and then grow from that. So thank you for sharing that. And then, Donna, do you have any favorite books from the past you want to highlight?
Yeah, this was one we read several years ago, but it's called Somebody's Daughter by Ashley Ford. And it actually has a local connection because the author, Ashley Ford, went to Ball State.
I got to see her speak my sophomore year. She is just magical.
It was the book was so relatable, even though it wasn't any of our experiences. It was just, her style of writing is just very engaging. And what was neat, though, a while later we invited her in for an online book club. And she decided to donate her small stipend that we provided to the food pantry at Ball State. So I just thought, she's obviously a very good individual. And
She got really popular this is probably 10 years ago now, not a couple, on Twitter because she started a trend where she told people to call into schools if they wanted to donate money and pay off children lunch.
I didn't realize that was her.
That was her. She was the one who tweeted that out, and she started a whole movement. She's awesome. And when I met her at Ball State, she came back because she knew my hall director and came back and talked with us. She is a wonderful human being. I mean, I feel like everything she does, she pours her heart into. So that's really sweet that she donated her stipend to the food pantry too. I love good people. So kind of shifting gears, these are kind of for newer folks. So for listeners who might be new to the idea of a book club, how would you describe what a book club is and what can someone expect when they join one? What would their first time going look like?
So for me, what a book club is just a group of people with a similar interest of the book coming into talking about it. Even if they hated the book, coming in and having a discussion and having that conversation about a specific topic, a specific thing all at one time. And even if you don't read the book, people usually still have something to say or relate to with what the topic of the book is. So just coming in and sharing that experience with others who love reading and talking about books.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Joe?
I would say it more as a community based of lifelong learners, because that's what essentially, if anybody who reads, like, we are continuously exposing ourselves to new stories, we're exposing ourselves to new ideas, new narratives, and whether you read fiction, nonfiction, historical fiction, what have you, I feel that the need for wanting to experience those kind of stories, and well as being able to share them with individuals and feel comfortable enough to do so, I think that's an important thing. So anybody who, especially if you feel like a fish out of water, if you're a transplant to like a new city or a new state or any kind of a new community, such as myself when I first came to Muncie as a student and then stayed, feel free to reach out to book clubs and give people a chance. It'll be a way for you to network. It'll be a way for you to get out and meet new people. And if you meet people over a shared interest, then all the more better, because then you'll just expand from there.
That's great. That's great.
To me, it's kind of a choose your own experience, because if you want to attend a book club and just listen and absorb, you can. Or if you want to actually discuss and share your ideas with other people, you can do that too. So it's kind of a choose your own adventure. People can just take from it what they want. And the other thing is, I hear time and time again from my members, well, I wouldn't have read this book on my own, but I'm glad I did. So it's a way to kind of expand your horizons and try new things.
Get you out of your comfort zone. Because
Right.
that's what the best thing for me for book clubs. I don't always like to put my ideas in there, because I
Right.
want what others want to read and hear about, because then it's always different.
Some of my all-time favorite books have been recommended by other people. Like, there's only so much you can look into. Someone else might shed the next great book that you'll be thinking about for years after. So that's wonderful.
I mean, 2 or 3 of my favorite authors right now were all recommended to me by other individuals. So
I love that. And I like that you don't have to participate by speaking, that you can just sit and absorb and listen, because especially for some more like, introverted folks, or even extroverts that are just tired and don't want to talk, I just think that's a very important thing to know, is that you can just sit and listen and just, absorb everything. So we kind of touched on this a little bit, but do people need to read the book to come? Or is it okay to show up if you're not finished? Because I think that's a barrier for a lot of people, is they got halfway through the book, they maybe got a little busy, and now, oh my gosh, it's book club week and I'm not done. Can I still go?
Oh, yes, definitely. Just with the last book we read, A Fever in the Heartland, some of the people didn't get it finished yet. Some of them is because they couldn't get a hold of a copy of the book, because it's a really popular book right now. You don't have to have read the book. You don't have to finish it. Some people don't enjoy the book, and that's fine. You can still come and talk about what you liked, what you didn't like about the book. Or you could just sit back and listen to hear what other people are saying about the book, because sometimes, you got to a certain point and you're like, is it worth me finishing this book? And just coming and listening to what other people say can tell you, oh, no, it's not worth finishing. Or, yeah, I want to actually see how that ended and finish it. So,
Yeah.
ideally speaking, for the sake of our book clubs, I will say you do not even have to open the book at all, where you can still
Nice.
attend, you can still partake in the lessons. Our facilitators have been wonderful
Great.
in ways of being able to extract the intentions behind the book, the feelings behind the book, and balance that out with the breakthrough sessions that we've done. So you do not have to even open the book at all to attend our meetings. If anything, a lot of people will pick up the book after the meeting, because now they've heard and a lot of the different things and ideas the book presents, and they want to know more and how it's more presented. So then they will check the book out after the fact. So it's honestly almost the exact opposite of how traditional book clubs work, where you read the book beforehand. And I really think that's an experience that a lot of people aren't necessarily aware of. So we do our best. I think it does a lot of good to have a book club like that.
Yeah, it takes away, you can get more spontaneous people to just, who may decide that day, you know what, I'm going to come, So I think that's great. It kind of takes away some barriers like we were talking about earlier. And then, Donna, do people need to finish the book to come to your club?
No, absolutely not. It kind of, as long as you don't mind spoilers, they probably will find some spoilers. But like Laura said, it kind of gives them a chance to decide whether they want to finish it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And in your experience, shifting back into the actual discussions, what makes for a really good book discussion?
For me, it's if everybody loves the book, you have the worst discussion because you have nothing to talk about because everybody loved it. It's better when you have mixed views or if everybody absolutely hates the book. You have
sure
the
that
best
is
discussions with those.
In our last podcast, they were talking about this book that Taylor had recommended from high school that Taylor was sitting there just smiling like, I'm so excited. And then everyone just was like, this is the worst thing I've ever read. So I do think it's very fun when everyone dislikes it.
Yeah.
I know there's been times where there's like some classic and I'll mention I don't like it and I find someone else who doesn't. And it's like we discovered a diamond in the rough. We're like, you hate that book too? So I think that people bond over hate. That's for sure.
Yeah, because when there's been times when everybody loved the book and it's like 15 minutes in, we're like, okay, now what do we talk about? So I usually try to pull stuff out from it, but sometimes it's like pulling teeth when if everybody loved it, no one has a lot to say about it, unfortunately. But if people hate it, they have a lot to talk about. Or if there's mixed views, if somebody liked it and others hate it, there are a lot of mixed views with that. So it's nice it's better to have a little bit of both. So like even if you hate the book, going and having that discussion is really good. So like 'cause some people won't come or they'll put it down to like I hated the book and they never show up and it's like but you could have bring something to the book club. Yeah, bring your hate.
Bring your hate. We want your hate there. And now, Joe, yours is a little different. So in your group, what makes a good discussion?
It's a little bit different, but at the same time, it is very similar because it's not so much the differing opinions that's more of the key with my group. With my group, it's the differing perspectives. Because the one thing about inspiring leadership books, which is the same as so many other different nonfiction books, and we see this all the time with like different diet books through cookbooks. You see this through personal financing, like all these different things. You get the idea that if there was a one-size-fits-all approach to a particular topic, then all you would need is just the one book that has been decided by everyone to say this works for everybody and it should be the only book of this topic on any library or bookshelf. So it's different because obviously we don't have that because a lot of nonfiction expands on so many different things. So for people to have different perspectives and different backgrounds to discuss how the leadership techniques in this particular book work or how they don't work, I feel that that's what makes good discussion.
Absolutely.
And I feel that's where the breakthrough sessions really help to give those personal experiences and exercises, ways to sort of get those perspectives out of different people.
Absolutely. And then, Donna, what about you? What makes a really good book discussion and reading circle?
Well, there's a saying that I love that no two people ever read the same book. And
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, so it's just fun to hear different perspectives. Even if, some people liked it, some people didn't. Just sharing their own experiences of the books from their own lens is interesting to me.
That's funny because I'm thinking of a book I'm literally reading right now. I'm reading Fourth Wing, and it's a very, very popular fantasy book right now. And one of my friends loves this character that since he has been introduced, I hate him. And it's just so funny because she loves him, but she knew I would dislike him. And she messaged me and she's like, so what do you think about Dane? And it's just so funny because I'm about halfway through it. And she was like, I knew the moment I read this and you told me you were reading this, you wouldn't like that. And so I think it's funny that I love that quote. Two people are going to read a very different book. So that's great. So going back to the actual list of books, is there a book on your list this year that you are especially looking forward to discussing? One that's kind of on the top of your list, or it can be one you've already discussed this year that was your favorite.
So it's just the title of this one that I really like. It's What You Are Looking For Is in the Library. It's got a little cat on the front cover of the book. I honestly don't remember what it's about, but I just love that title. And then the Starter Villain, I loved that book when we read it this year. So it was pretty good.
Great.
So, yeah. I think I'm definitely looking forward. I will eventually be checking out Let Them by Mel Robbins because I've heard so many good things about this particular book, and I've just on the idea, I always find it interesting what other people think of some particular books, especially nonfiction, because that's primarily what I like to read on a majority basis.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I like to read nonfiction, and a lot of people, you have to find a good author that you like, because nonfiction, a lot of it is the way they talk about what they are telling. I really like reading memoirs a lot. So that's great. And then Donna, what's on the top of your list for this year that you've read or are going to read?
Well, in August, we are going to read the book James, a novel by Percival Everett. And it's about, it's kind of a takeoff on the book Huckleberry Finn.
Oh.
But it's from the perspective of Jim, the runaway slave that Huck tries to help. And long after it was put on our list, it recently won the Pulitzer Prize. So I'm just looking forward to it because I know it's kind of controversial, but I really liked Huckleberry Finn, and so I'm just very interested in reading that.
Yeah, especially kind of like a newer take on the story and kind of looking at different characters and stuff. I'm sure that's going to be a really fascinating book to read. Let me find where I was. Here we go. So this kind of leans back into that question on like what makes a good discussion. And a lot of you guys said disagreement. So kind of pulling that back, have you ever had a book that completely divided the group? And what happened during that discussion? And from what I've gathered from both, that sounds like it's the most fun. So I'm very curious to see which books.
I'm trying to remember which books that we had that a lot with. We have one particular person that almost hates every book we read. So when she actually says she enjoyed a book, but she enjoys coming and discussing it, but like she almost says for every book, she says like she hates it. And there was one book that she said she liked, and I'm like, wait, what? You like this book, really? Now I cannot remember what the book was, but like we've had a couple that like it was almost a 50-50 split, like hate and liking the book. But we had really good discussions. There wasn't anybody that was like, oh, you hated the book, you're wrong. Or the other way around, like, you liked that book? No, you're totally wrong. This is why you shouldn't. We never have those kinds of discussions. It's never against the person of why they did or did not like the book. It's usually just, it brings more out. And sometimes at the end of it, they're like, oh, I see that. I didn't get that when I read it. Maybe if I reread it, I might like it better because of this one. They took it a different way. Somebody else took it this way. And then having that discussion of it, they're like, oh, I see. I thought this is what they were trying to say. But the way you're saying it actually makes a little bit more sense. I get that now. And so sometimes you end up having people that, while they didn't like the book, they understand it better in the end. And they was like, well, maybe I would like that book if I read it, if I was reading from that perspective.
Yeah.
I would say we never exactly had a book in that discussion, considering it's more of a developmental skills type of book club. Like we never had a book to where, other than literally being split up in our breakthrough sessions for like more of the exercises, we never had one that say, I like this book, I hate this book.
Well, and I feel like with books like that, you can kind of pick and choose what works for you and what you'll save for someone else, right? Like I know when I've read, professional development or listened to podcasts, there's certain times where I'm like, that's a good idea. And then there's certain times where it's like, that's not how I roll. So I think it's more of a take and leave situation with yours.
Yep, very, like I said earlier, very similar to how we have the same for books of any kind of multiple topic. There's things things that you agree with, things that you don't agree with, at least in those kind of approach-based topics there. Of course, there are nonfiction topics that deal with far much more factual details on that point, where it's like you're in this kind of sense, you're either right or wrong. But for this one, at least for more of like the developmental sense, it's definitely pick and choose. As if to say this will work, not so much.
Yeah. And then what about you, Donna? Have there been any books in Reading Circle that have just split the sides?
Well, last year we read The Lincoln Highway by Armour Tolles, and it was kind of funny because most of us really liked the book. We loved the story, but we have a retired English teacher in the group, and she hated the book because it lacked punctuation.
That's so funny. I knew you were going to say something like that, like the indents were wrong or something. That's such an English teacher thing.
So there was a lot of good-natured teasing and laughter in that.
I like that a lot. That's so funny. I will find myself doing that with like people who I'm a teacher, so I love to correct. When people add way too many commas into things where I'm like, no, like just because you would pause reading it doesn't mean a comma needs to be there. So I get that. I feel her so deeply. How big is your book club, and how does the size affect discussions?
So ours can range anywhere from 8 to 13. We've had up to 15, I think, in times. And we usually have pretty decent discussions. When it starts to get more to the 13, 15, it sometimes becomes hard to have a discussion because there's just so many people. And so it's hard to hear each other because sometimes we're sitting at just a long table and it's like, so then like trying to hear each other, but it's still nice to have all those different perspectives. So it's good to have a bigger group, but sometimes it may be a point where we have to kind of try to split it up into some more reasonable discussion groups if we get too many people, but I always enjoy having all the people there. And it's usually a really good group of people. And we usually have a couple new faces every once in a while, and they come back for a few. And then some of them, they don't like the book, so they don't come. And it's like, that's fine. You know, you can come and go as you please.
No set rules with book club besides have fun.
Yep.
Exactly. And for off the shelf, we tend to have the same thing, either high single digits or somewhat low to mid double digits on that point. The only awkward times that the size affects the discussions is when we break out into the breakout sessions. You'll have all of them that maybe go to one table, and then you'll have the maybe one or two that go to the secondary breakout table for Unfunk Yourself. Our last session, it was just me and this one other person when we broke up. So we were just like kind of pitching ideas off of each other, which was fine in that session. But then we bring it forward to the next one. We see everybody else like going into the discussions on what they had and figure, oh, they've got this. We're good.
Had that happen before, especially on Zoom, where you get put in a breakout room and it's like you and one person, and you're like, oh, well, here we go. I guess it's just you and I, buddy. Here we go.
And then if you're both introverts, it's just its own special circle of awkwardness.
Or if you're an extrovert like me, you just feel like you're talking over that. You're like, hey, you have anything to say? And they're like, no, please keep talking, please. And then how about yours? Is it a size impact anything at all?
We typically have about 10 to 13 people. But some of us are talkers and some of us are listeners, so it kind of meshes that way. And the only, when Laura was saying having trouble hearing, that's kind of an issue sometimes. But otherwise, it's a good group.
As a teacher, you could split them into small groups and then have them all come together for a discussion if you ever want. That can be good, but that's just my teacher-isms. And then finally, I love this question when we asked it last time too. If you could invite any author, living or dead, to one of your book club meetings, who would it be and why? Which is an extremely hard question.
It is a very
I'm glad
hard
I'm
question.
asking it and not answering it.
We actually had two authors come to one of our book clubs, Keith Royston and Douglas Walker, when we did Wicked Muncie. And that was so much fun to be able to hear from the author.
I interviewed Keith last week, and he is a wealth of knowledge. I highly recommend checking out his books. And that October, we have a whole podcast episode about that you should definitely listen. But
other authors, I can't think of any that I have we've done in a book club right off the top of my head. I can think of authors, maybe Ruta Sepeti, she was really good. We did The Salt to Sea a few years ago, and I've read just about everything she's written. She does historic fiction for YA.
Oh, cool.
And so she's also always looking at those smaller unknown stuff that's going on. Like Salt to Sea was the passenger ship that was a very small one in World War II that sank.
Oh, wow.
But it was actually like just citizens, not military. But she's also, her family has Lithuanian ties, and so she's done some dealing with that part of World War II. And so hers, she always has like a slightly different perspective of these stories, and she always picks like the smaller things to talk about. I did get to meet her at an ALA where she was signing books and things like that, but I think she would be a really interesting one to hear where she gets her ideas and how she researched those and things like that.
That's awesome. What about you, Joe? If you could invite any author, living or dead, to one of your book club meetings, who would it be and why?
I think for mine, Ron Chernow wrote the biographies for a lot of the presidential and other historical figures. I mean, this is an individual that has done so much research into a lot of individuals that when we think of leadership, we tend to think of these individuals first and foremost in our minds. And I
Can't
feel
get
that
much leadery than the White House, that's for sure.
I suppose, yes, on that kind of matter. And I think just getting more of a perspective as to the research that was done to examine all of these past examples of leadership. You would want to maybe say, okay, so if we were to take like Alexander Hamilton and study by a lot of the different leadership matters that of his own personal life, his own egoism, his own eccentricities, how would it be improved or how would it be lessened by using some of these? Like I love the idea of taking modern approaches to different topics and different approaches for social sciences and seeing how they could be applied in past examples back when we didn't know quite so much as well on that point. So I always do like a little bit of like thinking sometimes of that nation, especially when I let my mind wander while I'm doing things around the house or something of that variety.
Absolutely. And then Donna, what about you? If you could invite any author, living or dead, to one of your book club meetings, who would it be and why?
I would have to say Kristen Hanna. She writes a wide variety of things, and most of it is contemporary fiction, but we read The Women in January, and it was on a nurse during the Vietnam War, and I think almost all of us in the group remembered the Vietnam War, so it was just, it would be interesting to hear her perspective on that.
Absolutely. Well, that was all the questions that we had. So I'm going to go around. You can share anything else you want, or you can just plug your book club one more time. So I'll just let us all go around. Laura, is there anything you want to share before we go to our listeners?
I just want to invite people to come out and check out the book clubs. We have a variety of different ones. So if you go to one and you decide you don't like that you can always try one of our other book clubs that we have. We have
no one will
quite
be
a few.
offended.
No. I've had people that's come one time and I haven't seen them again. Then sometimes I see them come back months later because we've read another book they really enjoyed, or I heard they started a different one of the different clubs. So
Yeah.
I would say, feel free to take a look around, look at all the different book clubs, especially ones that differ from from beyond just the matters of fiction. Check out Off the Shelf, check out Dewey Divers, which I believe is one of our other major nonfiction book clubs. The cookbooks technically are nonfiction, so feel free to engage with that. And there's a lot of different varieties of stories that you can find both in fiction and in nonfiction. So feel free to take your look and go through both of those. Don't feel intimidated by one or the other. Just dive into both if you want to.
And then Donna, anything you want to share?
No, I think it's just feel free to join any of our book clubs and keep reading.
Great. Well, I love to hear that. And as a reminder, audiobooks do count as reading. So if the book is maybe a little, you don't have the time to sit down, you can always download one of these books on audio. You can check that out on our Libby app. But in the meantime, thank you all so much for listening. And as Donna said, keep reading.
This has been Pages and Partners, a Muncie Public Library podcast. For more information about library events and resources, visit munpl.org.